Just getting everything set up, folks. Okay, I think we're situated. Excellent. Okay, so we're doing a quick video today on how to make knife handles, or rather how to attach a handle to a knife. I'm going to be using this piece of Damascus steel, this pretty little knife. Make an excellent little skinning blade. Going to use an oak handle. I think that's what I've got too, oak or poplar, but that's what we're going to use. Here's the wooden question. It is oak, which will look really nice. First thing you've got to do is get your measurements, or in this case just draw your outline. Fairly simple stuff here, and there's all kinds of different ways you can cut your wood out. I'm going to use an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. Some folks are going to hear me say that and screech about how that's not the proper way and this, that, and the other. I don't care. This is the way I'm doing it. Excuse me. I'm going to say this is the way I'm doing it. I've had a lot of success doing it this way. So I'm going to continue on that path. I may use a jigsaw, I haven't decided yet. Nope, I don't know if that jigsaw blade's fresh or not. Move these belts. Let's find out. Find out how good this jigsaw blade is. And after this, we'll get into the next step in this. Nope. Definitely not using that. Go back to what I know. Tried and trusted. The main problem with using the angle grinder, excuse me, the main problem with using the angle grinder for that is it creates a fair amount of smoke, which will dissipate. It will dissipate rather quickly. Now you have to decide, once you're there, which end you want to use. And I try to match up the grains a little bit. I look for any pattern in the grain, the side that I can use that will look good. I've got it situated. Grab my marker. I always make a mark facing up, so that way I know that they're supposed to go the same direction. Just little things like that will help in the long run. Alright, gonna tap a couple holes using this bit, if it'll work. If not, we may be doing an epoxy fix here, and I hope that's not the case. So I'd much rather tap these holes. Ooh, that don't sound good. That drill bit is no longer any good. Okay. a good idea to get rid of bad drill bits as soon as you know they're bad. Unless you have a way of fixing them, making them useful. I don't. Oh, there it is. Done. I do, however, have a fairly new 1/8 inch drill bit. And it will serve my purposes quite well. Should. This does not want to drill. Okay, we're going to go on to plan B. And that's an epoxy. Setting the handles with epoxy, which is fine if you've got a good epoxy. I'm using DevCon, which is a 2-ton epoxy, which something this small should not be an issue. If you're doing anything with a knife this small, that can break it. Break a 2-ton epoxy's hold. I question your judgment first and foremost, because this kind of a knife is definitely not meant to take that form or fashion of abuse. First and foremost, like I said, I question your judgment. Secondly, it's just not going to work. So I do have a 1/4 inch hole drilled already. We're going to make use of that for a brass tube. So that won't be a problem. There we go. Okay. Find my 1/4 inch bit. I think this is one. No, that is not the one. Where is my 1/4 inch bit? See, this is the problem with allowing yourself to become unorganized. If you allow yourself to become unorganized, it is a chore to find some of the basic things you'll need in your shop. That may be a 3/16 hole. And I may not have... Yeah, I think that's a 3/16 hole. And I don't have a 3/16 bit. At least I'm fairly certain I don't. Wait a second. Again, this is where poor organizational skills will come back to bite you every single time. It's always good to be organized, and I just unfortunately have had a hard time of doing that lately. So I'm going to have to clean my shop one of these days. Like that quantifier one of these days. Let's try this, see if it works. Hopefully it does. Don't think it's going to. All right. So no thong tube for this one, which is fine. I mean, I was going to, but plans change, and sometimes That's not a bad thing. The ability to improvise on the run is a very handy skill to have. And one that over the years I have actually built quite quickly. Doesn't take me long to improvise. I'll go ahead and mix this epoxy up. It's a pretty knife. I was going to put a brass tube in it for a lanyard hole, whatever you want to call it. But the cards are not in my favor. Cut and run. Sometimes it is your best bet. And this is just one I'm making really for no other reason than I'm bored. If this was a customer's knife, I would take this down to, I would reheat treat it, temper it, retreat it. But it's not. Nobody has claimed ownership of this knife by sending me $50. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it this way. If you are interested in this knife, I'll leave a link to my Facebook page below in the comments after this video, after I'm done shooting this video. It'll be ready for shipping in the next day or two. We're going to have to let this epoxy settle once we get it on before we can shape the handle, unfortunately. So that'll be another video, but this will give you a good head start on if you're just getting started on knife making and you know how to get the metal cut to shape. This will kind of help you figure out how to move on the run, I guess. I was going to rivet this on, but that didn't work as planned. And I'm not going to try and fight the steel any more than is absolutely necessary. And I think there's some really good lessons to be learned in improvising when things aren't going your way. Sometimes you have to know when to say, okay, I'm going to get frustrated, I'm going to get flustered, I'm not going to do the best that I can do on this particular project. It would be wiser for me to cut out while I'm still halfway ahead. Leave this project where it is. Move on to bigger and better things. That is sometimes the wise thing to do. Now, like I said, if this was a customer's blade, a very different approach would be taken. One of I'm going to make this right by them to their specifications, not, oh crap, I need to do a quick fix. So and I always ask if I run into a problem with a knife I'm making, I always ask a customer, what do you want me to do? Not here's what I'm going to do. Because I feel like if I give them the option, 9 times out of 10 they're going to pick the option I would have picked anyway. And we will all be happy. And I will leave with my sanity intact. Sometimes that happens. You do get people who are hard-nosed and don't seem to understand the way steel works from time to time, and they're going to want a magic bulletproof knife that's going to cut through a tank and come out the other end without any scratches on the steel. And those customers, I advise you to cut and run. Cut your losses, get away from them. They don't know the way steel works. They don't understand, and that's no fault of your own. But dealing with customers like that will make you dislike what you're doing. And as a craftsman, you really need to enjoy your trade to some degree. That has to be a very important factor, and you have to take pride in your work and know when to say, hey, look, not only can I not do that for you, nobody can do it for you. Some things are just not possible. And I've had to tell some folks that before. They don't always like to hear it, and sometimes they listen to me and say, okay, you know what, you're the guy who makes the knives. You probably know better than I do. I'm going to trust your judgment. How can we put a knife in my hand? I have not had too many negative interactions, thankfully. I've only had one guy, thankfully, so far, who I just could not reach. And that fella ended up costing me a lot of money, and I since have said no more. I'm not going to take a loss on a project that I invest a great deal of time in, and that's a personal choice. Some people are in a position where they can afford to. I'm not. I don't know too many knife makers who are in a position where they can afford to lose money on a project. If you are one of those, more praise to you. I'm in awe of your ability to be able to take that loss. This one's probably going to be a loss for me unless I just keep it for myself. But I don't mind. Put in a lot of time on it. This is a blade I wouldn't mind keeping. Anytime you're doing a build like this where you're just going to leave the handles attached and epoxied and then grind, it's a really good idea to clean up what you can. Take a nail, take a rag, do whatever you got to do. Clean some of this excess epoxy off. It'll make your life easier when you're getting ready to do your grind on the wood, and that is always a good thing. Okay, since I didn't get to pin handles on that one. Hey Suhail, how you doing, man? We're gonna go ahead and go ahead and throw a handle on this one. Use the same thing. Use oak, and this time I'm going to go ahead and shape the handles out beforehand. So this is a twofer, I guess. Go ahead and take end cuts this time. Okay, alright, it's close enough for me. I will take it. Go ahead and flip this over to this side. Awesome. Man, that's awesome. I personally use a lot of power tools. Don't let that discourage you. I have all the stuff necessary to make it without power tools. Make knives without power tools, but I really just do not want to do that. Very time consuming. Takes a lot of energy. And you really have to make sure you know what you're doing. That's a trade I would like to get into one day. I would like to do it a couple builds with no power tools, but not for me. Let me go ahead and... I missed your comments, man. I've got 6 hours into it. Interestingly enough, I was just kind of scanning YouTube I saw a fella who was making knives, and I thought, okay, that's cool. I bet you I could do it, but I'm probably not going to ever do it. And then I don't have the knife anymore. I used to use it as an example, but I dropped the knife about 3-4 feet onto my wooden floor. It snapped, and I said, okay, that was a store-bought cheap knife. Bet you I could do it better. So I've been doing it. At that point, I looked a little more seriously into it and decided, okay, I'm going to make my own knife. And I'm not going to mention the company's name because, quite frankly, that would be free advertising. I'm not about to advertise for them. Personally, I'm a big believer in if you can do it in the easiest way possible, do it the easiest way possible. But man, I have got nothing but respect for you for doing it by hand with no power tools. Yeah, I do this professionally. I guess you could call it that. I do sell my knives. I've got a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Brutal Blades Workshop. You can find a bunch of knives there. Really, I focus on custom work. So basically, I wait for a customer to send me a question saying, hey, I want a knife. How much do you charge? Blah, 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 blah. I go from there. I mean, if you're interested, man, we can talk more here while I'm working on this. And go from there. Most of my knives sell for around $110, $115. I do make exceptions very rarely, and only if I feel like it would be a really good publicity thing for me, or I feel like you know, it's just not reasonable for me to charge more. Suhail, man, where are you from? Just so I can get an idea of how far I'm reaching. And I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't want to offend. I really hope I pronounced your name right. I'm probably butchering it, but if I am, I apologize. And if I got it right, cool. I'm going to let this battery charge real quick. Alright, I'm going to show you guys how to use this belt grinder real quick. Rather, how I use it. Some people would say I'm stupid and a fool. And they would probably be right. Honestly, I think I sold my first blade to a guy I played a video game with, and I was telling him, hey, look, check this out. I sent him a picture of a knife I made, and he said he liked it and wanted me to make one similar to it, and so I did, and I think I charged him 25 bucks. And the guy is excellent. Guy's a good friend of mine. I don't mind charging him peanuts, you know, next to nothing for knives. He's bought plenty off me, so repeat business I will definitely make a exemption for. So have you seen any of the other videos on my channel, man? Just out of curiosity, or is this your first time seeing my channel? Okay, asking if read out the comment, your viewers will like it better. Okay, sold my first blade, like I was saying, to a guy I played video games with. And I'll take that into account, and you're not going to offend me, man. I've got pretty thick skin. It's hard to offend an ugly guy like me. Okay, I've been called every name in the book. Okay. I've got several others where I get more in, and I show kind of like a time lapse of me doing the grinding and everything, and talking about stepping up. Excuse me. There's several other videos on my page that kind of go into detail on, if I remember right. I may be backwards here, because I've got a Facebook page where I also do a lot of live streams, and I do a lot of how-to and stuff like that. And like I said, check out my Facebook page, man. It may help you. I don't know if it will, but it might. I'm going to go ahead and crank this up. It might be loud, and I might not notice your message. If that's the case, I apologize, and just hit B, just type B or something, so that way I see that you're messaging me if I miss a message. You're looking to get into knife making as well. Want to start a YouTube channel like me. Hopefully yours is more successful than mine. I have like 60 subscribers. If you want to do it, just do it. Get into it. Start making knives. It's the best advice I can offer you. Trying to find a better belt here. Yeah. New recommendations for, do I have any recommendations for new knife makers about where they can learn to make knives? Walter Sorrells. Walter Sorrells has some great how-to videos. His are a little more in-depth. Walter Sorrells, Simple Little Life. That's a good channel to watch. Shoot, let me see. Walter Sorrells, Simple Little Life. Those are two really good channels. Oh yeah, both of those. Both of those are going to get into heat treating and things like that. Walter Sorrells has a great video on heat treating, like backyard style, bare bones. Excuse me. Walter Sorrells has probably got the best knowledge base I've seen on YouTube. he's a little one-sided, but his knowledge comes from experience. He's got a wealth of experience. So. Ooh, books. There are books. Oh, shoot. What books would be good for beginning blacksmith? Backyard Blacksmith. I can't remember who wrote it. That's more geared towards just general blacksmithing. Any books that are on the American Bladesmithing Society's webpage, I think if I remember correctly, their webpage is abs.com or AmericanBladesmithingSociety.org or something, just something like that. If you Google American Bladesmithing Society, just follow the link to their page. They've got all kinds of books. I think there's like 7 or 8 for beginners. If I remember correctly, again, this is me just coming off the top of my head, and I don't have the knowledge right in front of me. If I was inside, I could look it up and tell you. No, you're, you know what? That's fine. I don't mind all the questions, so that's not a problem. Marketing, how do I market my knives? I have a Facebook page, like I said, and I blow it up. I sell it. There's all kinds of different Facebook pages for blacksmithing and bladesmithing where you can market your stuff there. I mean, just do a local group search and you can usually find a lot. I show people around town, you know, if I bump into a guy and we're talking and he brings up liking knives, I whip out my phone and start showing him pictures of knives I've made. And a lot of it is counting on friends and family to share my page and to share pictures of my blades. And that has helped exponentially. Making business cards has helped. I've had some business cards made up. How long have I been making knives? What is it, 2018? I started in 2015, 2016. 2 or 3 years. Yeah, 2 or 3 years I've been making them professionally. As a hobby, I've been involved in messing with metal for a very long time, so that helps. I have a background in playing with steel. I've used knives all my life. So I kind of came into it knowing what I wanted for myself. And I know what works, what designs work, and what designs just don't work. Usefulness. Practicality. What is the philosophy behind my knife designs? That's it right there. Usefulness, practicality. I make tools first. That's the way I look at it. A knife is a tool. Nothing more, nothing less. Beauty is secondary to functionality. If it doesn't work, it's not worth a shit. I don't care how pretty it is. You have a pretty paperweight if it doesn't work. Some people will argue that, oh, if it's not pretty, why'd you even make it? I'd rather it work. Plain and simple, I'd rather my knife work. As far as anything else outside of that, I can't give you an answer. I can't give you an answer. How many knives have I made professionally? Are you asking how many have I sold? If you're asking how many I've sold, I can't tell you off the top of my head. More than 100. How many have I made and decided I didn't like and I just throw them away? Probably more than 100. I have a pile in my corner over here of knives that just didn't make the cut. For instance, this big behemoth, didn't like the way it was turning out. I use it for practicing welding now. I grind it down, weld a couple beads, and yeah, I just don't like the shape of it. I don't like the design. Sometimes I do have a semi-production line of knives that I make, and I'll make them and I'll sell them at a lower rate. By semi-production, I don't mean that I send them out to be manufactured or anything like that. It's just knives that I like to make. This one's the handle's setting in epoxy right now. But this design is one of my favorites. It works really well. You can't see the handle design, but it's very simple, very small. It's a very practical, everyday knife, and I just got my hands covered in epoxy. Not the greatest feeling in the world. Just very sticky, nasty, gross mess. But part of it. Who are my favorite knife makers? There's a few. My all-time favorite is Walter Sorrells. His blades are functional, they're beautiful, they're effective, they do what they're designed to do, and he knows what he's doing. You can tell he knows what he's doing. And he comes from a martial arts background, which I really like. Second would be the guys at the YouTuber Simple Little Life. He's another really talented knife maker. His focus is more on stock removal type blades, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just not going to be practical for everybody. Lynn Ray, who is a master smith in out of Central Arkansas. Amazing knife maker, absolutely phenomenal. He's a master rated smith with the American Bladesmithing Society. He teaches blacksmithing and bladesmithing. He's a phenomenal guy, very straightforward, very respectful. Takes the time out to look at knives that I've made, and I have no, that I'm not extremely proud of, and he says, well, I would fix this and this, and he puts me in the right direction quite often. He's an absolutely phenomenal guy to watch his knives being made. It's just an art. It really is. His knives are the epitome of great American knife making. Most of his knives are Bowie style knives and field camp style knives, which is fine. They look amazing. He does some Damascus work, which is absolutely, his Damascus is absolutely stunning. So if I had to pick my top three, it would be that, in no particular order. Trying to think of if there's any others that I can think of. I hesitate to say this because I don't consider him a knife maker. I like Alex Steele's work with knives. He has a very good fundamental understanding of blacksmithing. However, I feel like he has a lot to learn as far as humility goes. It's nothing disrespectful. I just feel like sometimes he gets a big head when he doesn't deserve to have one. Most of my knives have been sold locally in the city I live in. Where have I sold most of my knives? Most of them have gone no further than across the field from where I live. I've sold them as far away, though, as Germany. I've sold them to folks in Canada. I've sold them to guys in West Virginia, Washington, both DC and the state. I mean, my knives are kind of everywhere. And I'm proud of that. I really am. I'm proud that, you know, my knives are out there. That makes me feel good. There's a couple other states I need to get to before I can say I've sent a knife to every state in America, but I'm getting there slowly. Yeah, most of them, like I said, I have no issues with, and I don't have any issues with, like I was saying, Alex Steele as a person. I think he's a wonderful, I think he's a wonderfully talented young man, and I think he's got a great future ahead of him, and I think he's only going to continue to get better. I just wish he would reevaluate the way he does things. That's my personal opinion. I can't cite any examples. There's something about him that rubs me the wrong way. That's the best way I can describe it. And I know that sounds really bad, but it's the truth, and I try to remain honest with people. Excellent, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the subscription. Yeah, unfortunately, I know you can't see well in this video. Unfortunately, I don't have a very good setup right now. The knife itself, I'm basically finished with. I'm going to run a bit of sanding over it. I don't know if that shows real well or not. Still needs to be sanded down a bit, but the knife itself is finished. I've been trying to keep the camera close to the grinder where you can see a little bit better. Unfortunately, I can't get it too close. Get it any closer and I risk ruining my camera, unfortunately. There we go. Right now, I'm just happy to have any viewers. I had a mass exodus from the channel due to inactivity not too long ago. So I'm just happy I've got any viewers at all. So I do appreciate you watching. Thank you. That was fun to make. That was a lot of fun to make. I had a lot of fun with that project. I don't know if it showed. That project was by far the most fun I've ever had making a knife. Good grief. Alright. Right now, you can tell I'm tapping holes in here. What I'm doing is I'm getting the rivet holes set. There's going to be 6 of them. Oh, I appreciate it, man. Anytime. Anytime I can get help or somebody else to look at my channel and see what I'm doing right and wrong, I absolutely love it. I'm all about learning new things. I love to learn, so I do not mind. I do not mind having constructive criticism thrown my way. And you'll never see me throw a temper tantrum if somebody says, "Hey, you're doing it wrong." And if you do see me doing that, stop me and tell me I'm an idiot. Because that's the way you learn. Well, I can see that I'm an idiot too, so. One thing you will find very quickly on my channel is I'm very sarcastic. Some people don't like that. Other people do. It's just who I am. It's got me this far in life. Why are you fighting me? One thing you'll learn is if it's going easy, something's wrong. Knife making is not the easiest thing in the world. Very rarely, if ever, will it go according to plan. Just embrace it. Embrace the suck is what we used to say when I was in the military. Used to say embrace the suck, because if it's not sucking, something's wrong. And that applies very well to knife making. If something's not going wrong, what knife do I carry? Daily? I carry one of my own knives, actually. I don't have it with me on my person because it's in the house, put up. But it's very similar to that skinning knife I showed you. Very, very similar to this one. It's my favorite knife, and it's not because I made it. It's my favorite knife. I've got it. It's sharp. It does what I want it to do. Give me one moment. If I missed your question, I apologize. I just got to get this handle pin set, or this placeholder set. Okay, that's set now. Go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Do I heat treat myself, and what kind of steel do I use? Yes, I heat treat myself. The second answer to that question is whatever the customer wants me to use. It may be Damascus steel one day, or pattern welded steel one day. It may be stainless steel the next. It truly depends on whatever the customer is wanting. This knife is just a simple carbon steel. I don't know if that'll help you answer your question any. This knife in particular is carbon. If I remember correctly, it's 1095. Although it may have been part of the batch. I'd have to go back and look at my batch order. It may be part of the batch of 1080 I ordered. I'd have to go back and look at my numbers. I don't know off the top of my head. Okay, all the holes are drilled now. Just gonna go ahead and cut these pins off here, start adding other pins in, and then I'll draw out the rest of this. And I'm gonna have to finish this one up tomorrow. It is like 1 o'clock in the morning for me, so do need to get some rest. This is where I'm going to leave this one tonight. I'm going to try and finish it up tomorrow sometime. If not tomorrow, it'll be before the start of next week. But that should give you a fair idea as to how I go about making handles. This one's going to have a brass finger guard attached. I just haven't got that far yet. And the sucker is already sharp. It's got some finish up polish work to do. But by and large, this thing is finished, and I will finish it up later on the rest of the way as far as the handle goes. Any other questions before I leave? And before I do go, I want to go ahead and show you one last thing. I know you're getting started in knife making. I will show you one thing that will help. The motors that you get on these 4x36 belt grinders, if you ever go that route, are what I would call insufficient. I'm going to go ahead and put the stock motor that came with this thing beside the motor I put on it. If I can turn this camera around. This is the motor that came with it. It's 1/3 horsepower motor. That's the motor that came with it, that I put on it. And a little bit of ingenuity, rigged it up myself. Will go a long way in knife making, because if you don't have a little bit of creativity and a little bit of ingenuity, knife making is going to be very hard for you. I guess my light just zapped a bug. Creativity is going to be your best friend, more than anything else. So remember why you started wanting to make knives first and foremost, and go from there. Understand why you want to do it, and from there just spend time you can, whatever time you're free and you're not doing something, spend the time, even if it's just looking up the metallurgy of different steels, how to heat treat different steels, how to look at videos of people making knives, or like this one or any others. Look at videos of, or pictures of knives. Find a shape you like and say, okay, this is a shape I really like, and follow and go make it. Just the easiest way I can say it is just go make it. You'll probably fail your first couple attempts. Maybe just your first attempts, you might get it right. You never know. There's some designs I just can't do. And I'll be honest with people when they ask for them. Karambits, can't make them. Have no desire to even try. And it's nothing personal against that particular blade. It's just, I can't make them. I don't know why. I understand the design and all that, but it's outside of my ability to forge a karambit. for some reason. They never turn out right. Other than that, I mean, I really haven't had much issue with knives. But that one just gets away from me. I've lost interest in them. I used to like them. I no longer do. I will tell you right now to stay away from making knives out of files. File steel is very hard, very brittle. It's not easy to work with, and it's very hard to cut. So if you try to use a hacksaw to cut it, you're going to break your blade on your hacksaw 9 times out of 10. It can be done. There's plenty of videos of guys making them, but file steel is extremely hard steel, and it's great for knife making if you have the time to just blow on a blade, because that's what you're going to do. I don't care what others say. I've made knives out of files. They work wonderfully. I have nothing against them, but I won't be doing very many more unless it's specifically requested. Personally, I would recommend you get your hand on some railroad spikes like this. Recommend you get your hands on about 30 or 40 of them, as many as you can get your hands on, and work on forging those out into knives. That's a really good start. That's a really good practice tool. It'll teach you all the fundamentals of forging that you need to know. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Yep, 1075 is a good steel. There's a really good check to see if a steel is worth making a knife out of. Let me go grab a hammer real quick and I'll show you. Sorry, I had to go out to the forge to get my hammer. This is the best check in the world for determining whether or not your steel is of sufficient quality to make a knife. Set it across your anvil. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to show you what to do though. This would work a lot better if my back was working with me. Set it across your anvil so that the tip of the knife hangs off the edge. Pick up your hammer. If it does this, it's not good hardenable steel. This was quenched in water. If it was a good hardenable steel, it should have shattered. You'll notice it didn't even crack. So, if it does that, it's not a good steel. And that's unfortunately I can't show you anymore because I don't have any of my test steel available. No, I don't. So that's all I can show you. I can't show you what it looks like when it breaks. Although you can find plenty of videos on YouTube of knives failing. So, I think that's the last bit. Yeah, that's no good. You definitely This is not a tempered blade. This is just straight water hardened. I took it out, dipped it. This is after heat treat. This was after the heat treat, before the temper. What I did is I dipped it in a bucket of ice water. If it's heat treated, not tempered, and you smack it with a hammer, and it doesn't crack, there's a problem. That means it didn't get hard. See, how can I put this? If your knife is heat treated but not tempered, it will be... Sorry about that. If a knife is heat treated but not tempered, it will be very brittle, much like glass. It'll shatter. After you temper it, that's where it gets its toughness and will give a little bit. Yep, that's something you definitely need to know. Matter of fact, you can take some old tube steel, and this is a great demonstration. Take some old tube steel like this, some square tube steel, cut it into a small strip. This stuff's ridiculously easy to find. Cut it into a strip, heat treat it, but don't temper it. Smack it on an anvil with a hammer, and it will shatter. It does harden, but it does not harden in a good way. I've never gotten it to temper correctly. I've hardened it and then tried to temper it at a multitude of levels, and it either gets too soft or it stays too hard. I've never found a happy medium. So another good practice item for making knives, learning how to make knives: nails. That sounds really funny, but you don't need a forge. You don't need to forge burning it to teach you some of the fundamentals of blacksmithing or bladesmithing, to teach you, or to work out, to flatten a nail, to draw out a nail, something like that. You can see, very malleable. I don't know how clear that's going to come through. Shoot. But something like this is very malleable. Bends, moves very easy under a hammer. And it's really good. You can make a lot of fun little things out of it. Little toy, G.I. Joe, freaking swords for your little action figures or your nephew, whatever. Yeah, that's something that I think it was my wife. I think she found it. Found a video on Facebook of a guy making a little army sword for a G.I. Joe character or something like that out of a nail. Cocktail parties, things like that. You can stick that in an olive and it just makes a really cool little decorative knife thing. It's quirky, it's silly, but people like it. And you can sell a bundle of those. You can get a box of nails for $1. And you can turn around and sell the box of nails for $5 that you've turned into little swords. People will buy that all day long because they're great for parties, things like that. And they just look neat. So stuff like that you can have fun with, you can play with, you can learn with. And it's not expensive. Very cheap to... It'll allow you to learn the fundamentals without spending a lot of money, and that's very important. It'll also give you instant feedback without having to worry about the forge burning and burning your fingers, things like that. Now, after hammering on it, it will get hot. The steel moving the friction of it moving will create heat, and you can burn yourself. Give yourself little blisters from doing this if you just use your hands. So I would recommend holding it with a pair of pliers. Other than that, this is little rants going on too long. I'm going to go ahead and go to bed. Thank you for watching though, man. I do appreciate it. And hopefully you learned something. Now if I can figure out how to end this live video.